What's going on? This is Greg Helbeck, and on this podcast, I'm going to talk about what to do when your marketing is not working. And I'm going to actually use a campaign I'm running right now in Reno, where I live, direct mail campaign, and it is really sucking right now. And I want to kind of dive into the data and see what's going on. So anyway, if you're not familiar with me, I've been a full-time real estate investor now for over 8 years. I've done very well. I've made a lot of mistakes and blah, 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 blah. But the point of this podcast and this YouTube channel is to share what I've learned with my followers so you can hopefully learn from my mistakes and become more successful. So if you do get value from this podcast or the YouTube video, if you can subscribe to my YouTube channel or leave me a review on the podcast, that would really mean a lot to me. So right now I'm going to dive into actually the numbers on a direct mail campaign in Reno, Nevada. So I moved up to Reno in September, and I've always wanted to do business here. So I figured the easiest way to tap into the market, so I thought, was going to be just through direct mail. I've made money in direct mail in multiple states. I've done it for years. I understand it very well. I know generally what it takes to get deals, and I figured I could come into Reno and start just cleaning up left, right, and center. And boy, so far have I been wrong. So I'm just going to share some real numbers with you right now on how much money I've spent on the mailing so far. So I'm going to add some numbers up, and this is going to scare some people when they see this because it is insane when you look at the numbers. So I've spent $30,218 so far in mail. I haven't gotten a single deal. I'm going to say that one more time. I've spent $30,218 in direct mail, and I have not bought a house. And that is insane. And I'm going to tell you what I'm trying to do here and see maybe if I can, solve my own problem and share it on this podcast for free. So most of that expense has actually been through data. So I bought the Authentic Predictive Data List, which so far has been garbage up here in Reno. Apparently, it's really good data. It's really expensive, so they say, and I spent a bunch of money. I think it was like $13,000 for that data set or something like that. It was expensive, way more expensive than I really wanted to pay. But I figured, you know what, let me take this seriously, and I'm going to, buy this data and this, that, and the other. So anyway, bought that data. I thought that data was going to give me a huge advantage. It has not, and that's where a lot of the expense is coming from. The other expense to this is just postage, postcards and letters and whatnot. So spent $30,000. Out of that $30,000, 13 of that was data, which is crazy. And the response rates on average on these campaigns, I'm just looking. So the first one was 0.06. The second one was 0.006. The second one was 0.004. The third one is when I bought that data, and that was 0.002. So as you can see, I'm getting barely, not even 0.5% response rate. So I'm basically getting 0.002 to 0.006 response rate, which is extremely low. And it seems like that is the way it is in Reno because I'm sending decent mail pieces and I'm hitting a quote unquote decent list. But I'm just not getting a lot of responses from my marketing. And in terms of the calls to leads ratio, it looks like about a third of them are actual leads, from what I'm seeing here. So out of the calls that come in, a third of those calls are actual leads. And so far we've gotten 35 actual net leads from all of this spend, and we've got no deals to show for it. So if I take that 30,218 number of spend and divide it by 35 leads, my cost to get a lead right now in Reno from direct mail is $863 on average, which is insanely high. And we have obviously not bought a house. So let me kind of pick this apart here and try to investigate and see what might be the issue with this. So the first thing I've noticed is obvious. It's the response rate is very low up here in Reno. It's not as high as it is in New York or Delaware. And I'm a little surprised on why the response rate is low here because there's not a lot of investors in this market, like marketing for sellers. Obviously, there are people doing it, but this is not like a San Diego or a Houston where there's 100 wholesalers going direct to seller. There's probably 5 or 6 people up here, including myself, who are consistently marketing to sellers. So you would think with that type of non-investor activity from a marketing standpoint, you'd have a decent response rate because people aren't getting flooded. But apparently that doesn't matter because I guess whatever I'm sending these sellers is not really resonating with them. So that's, I think, the first issue. The second issue that I'm a little upset about is that I spent a lot of money on this predictive data and it has not given me a competitive advantage whatsoever. Most of the people, believe it or not, on this list are actually pretty wealthy and sophisticated. Like I went on an appointment today in Reno on a lead we got from a predictive data mailing, and this guy is definitely not an idiot. I mean, apparently this predictive data set, you get like unsophisticated people who are statistically selling at a discount or whatever the hell it is. I don't know what the hell they're using. But this guy was certainly not an idiot. He might sell at a discount because he's got a little bit of a hairy situation, but he's definitely not a moron. Not at all. So I don't know where the company I bought this data from is getting their records or their stuff, but clearly most of these people, I think there was actually another appointment I went on where the lady was actually, it made sense for her to sell at a discount, but she ultimately didn't. She put it on the MLS. She's going to get market value for the property, even though the property's beat up. But the point I'm trying to make here is that the data that I bought has not been great. And honestly, if I knew the data was going to be this bad, and I'm probably going to have to get another phone call with this company to see what's going on, I would have just bought the list from PropStream and Property Radar and ListSource and all the basically free stuff. And I wouldn't have had to incur a $13,000, data bill that I paid, which is crazy. And listen, if the data worked, I'd pay double that price. But clearly it hasn't been working that well. And I've spent enough money to really kind of get a decent sample size. And usually in direct mail, just to give you a rule of thumb in our other campaigns in other areas, about 1 out of 15 to 1 out of 20 leads is a deal. It's actually probably less. It's probably like 1 out of 12 because we have really good conversion rates in Delaware and New York. And right now we've gotten 35 net leads and haven't gotten a single deal. We had a piece of land we got under contract that wasn't worth shit. I had another accepted offer that I thought was a deal and then it turned out not being a deal because the guy wanted too much money and blah, blah, blah. So that could have technically been a contract. But in terms of dollars in, dollars out, I got $30,000 out and $0 in. What am I going to do about this? I'm actually going to keep mailing this list, believe it or not. And I'm going to definitely mail this list at least another 2 times. And I might test this list that is expensive against just a broad list for free, even though that's going to cost me more in postage. But I'm going to keep testing. I'm going to keep mailing because, if we get 50 net leads, there's a chance we're going to buy a house. There's a very good chance we're going to buy a house. It would be very hard for us to not convert 1 out of 50. But at least so far, what I've seen from the seller profiles here, and obviously I don't deal with a lot of the sellers. Brett, my acquisitions guy / partner, does that. But really, and I've dealt with a few of them here and whatnot. It seems like people in Reno, at least from what I've seen, are not that motivated to sell their house. I have not seen a lot of distressed people. I've seen a few here and there, but I haven't really seen anybody that's like ultra distressed. It seems like people up here are pretty aware of what their properties are worth. And it seems like a lot of people end up putting them on the market because it is a small market here. And that's another thing I think that is a challenge up here so far. Obviously, I'm going to find a way to make this successful. We're doing other marketing channels besides mailing up here, but it seems to me like Reno's a small area, which it is. There's not even 1 million people here. There's probably 600,000 people in like the metro area, which is pretty small. So it seems like there's a small pool of people who might take a discount. So if you take that into consideration with the fact that a lot of people are moving to Nevada from California and whatnot, it adds a little level of sophistication with the sellers, at least, in terms of their knowledge of what their properties are worth. So in summary, my response rate's really low. I don't know why that is because it's really not flooded with investors, this market. So that's that. I am going to sign off, and I hope you got value from this. The point of this video is this. Sometimes your marketing's not going to work, and you have to just stay the course and, persist until you have success. So if you got value from this, subscribe to the channel, leave a review, whatnot. And if you got value, like I said, that would really mean a lot if you can share the show. And if you want to do a deal with me, email me, Greg@velocityhousebuyers.com. The property's got to be in Reno, New York, Delaware, or San Diego. Take care.